All right, hello anatomy and physiology students. This is just a quick review of the histology slides for the skin. I want to remind you that you should use your wish list while you're looking at this to be sure that you are just learning and identifying the things that I would actually like you to know from the wish list. So this is a pretty low power. You can see 40x cross section or cut through the skin, where you can see the very cellular darkly staining epidermis on the surface, and then underlying it the irregular dense collagen fibers of the dermis. Underlying is what we call the hypodermis, a layer with lots and lots of adipose tissues that also support blood vessels and nerves that go to the skin. So this is a closer view of the same thing. There you can see that layer of the epidermis. The sort of outer layer are the dead keratin-filled cells that we are continuously sloughing off, and the underlayer are the living cells that replace them. And you can see there's always an uneven boundary between the epidermis and the dermis, probably to help create a good cohesion between the two layers so that the epidermis doesn't come unattached. And then of course you can see the layers, both the reticular and papillary layer of the dermis. Not that easy to tell where one ends and where the other starts, but the papillary layer is very thin on the surface. Of course you have blood vessels in here, some glands, some ducts for the sweat glands, and of course lots of collagen fibers. Looking at the epidermis more closely, now you can clearly see the layers of the epidermis, starting with that basal stratum basale or basal layer, where all the mitotically active cells are reproducing in order to give rise to all the other layers as they gradually move superficially through the layers of the epidermis. And so those basal cells then become the cells in the stratum spinosum. They start to fill. Those basal cells then start to fill with collagen, eventually reaching the stratum granulosum, where they look kind of grainy in appearance, are very filled with keratin, and then die off and go on to form the outer or stratum corneum layer that then is constantly sloughing off and being replaced. So that's the layers of the epidermis that we can see, and of course sitting right on top of the irregular collagen fibers of the dermis. You can also see lots and lots of fibroblasts in there. Oops. All right, sorry about that. There we go to the layers of the, or a more up-close view of the dermis, where again you can see those dense irregular collagen fibers, the main component of the dermis, and a lot of fibroblasts interspersed throughout here. This is just another view of the epidermal layer, the living cells giving rise to that outer keratinized dead layer of cells. And this is now a very low magnification view again, showing the highly cellular epidermis, darkly staining cells, but showing how they dive deep down into the dermis where there is a hair follicle. So those hair follicles is really an epidermal layer that is diving way down into the dermis. Here's another hair follicle, another one here. If you're wondering why it gets cut off, it's just because it sort of is angling out of the plane of the slide. But this one you can quite nicely see the entire one. And here more up close, again, you can see that hair follicle diving down into the dermis from the epidermis up here. We've got a nice sebaceous gland. You can know that's a sebaceous gland because it's coming right off of the hair follicle. You can see a sweat gland here, see the highly cellularized structure within the dermis. I don't care about you knowing the different kinds of sweat glands, but definitely should recognize that those sweat glands are within the dermis, but originally derived from the epidermal cells. This is just a close-up of the bulb region where the hair is being formed inside the follicle. I don't care about you knowing the different parts of that. And this is another view of a hair follicle, again with that nice sebaceous gland coming off of it, the epidermal layer diving deep down into the collagen fibers of the dermis. And that's it for the skin. So thanks a lot and have a good one.